And kia ora and welcome to everybody that's here as well. So I'm originally from Hawke's Bay. I'm not sure if we have anybody here from Hawke's Bay, but it is a wonderful place of New Zealand. But Auckland has become my home since 2004. And many times when people move into Auckland, they find it a little hard to kind of connect and make it home. But I think when people eventually do, it's I think like Sanjay said, it's a beautiful city. So I must be one of the biggest fans around our city. It's a beautiful city, but also a very broken city in many ways. And so we just welcome the way that you're gathering tonight to pray for Auckland. Because I think what happens here in Auckland actually affects our whole country in some significant ways as well. And we can maybe talk about that a bit later. But I think it's a really special time in Tamaki Makaurau right now. And it just feels like the favor of God is upon churches coming together in some significant ways. And I really sensing the Spirit doing something new and fresh. And I'm seeing that in a couple of ways that I want to highlight. And first of all, I'm seeing a real growing heart for unity in our city among churches. And I think one of the things I've always heard about Auckland is the competition that sadly has existed among churches for a long period of time. And it just feels like that's starting to be challenged, and there's more of a warmth happening and less competition, if I could say that, between local churches. And one of the things I think I've been finding lately is coming back to reread some of the passages that church leaders often talk about with unity, but we often read them and understand them in our own local church contexts. And I think it's nice to come back to these and reread them with a lens of a city in mind or a nation in mind. So if we can get one of these up on the screen, it's Ephesians chapter 4. So this is what Paul writes. And again, we often read this through the lens of a local church, but I'd like us to hear it through the lens of churches in a city or churches in a nation. So obviously tonight, thinking about Tamaki Makaurau of Auckland. So Paul says, make every effort, so strong words, make every effort, to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you've been called to one glorious hope for the future. There's one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over and in all and living through all. And just see Paul's heart for unity, and you grab God's heart for unity, which is why Paul says, make every effort to pursue this. And as we think about it, from moving from a local church to even churches in the city, I think it's this move to go from suspicion to warmth, realizing that the blood of Jesus flows through every follower of Jesus. It's like with the spiritual blood through our spiritual veins, bringing us together in this spiritual whānau as family. And so I think the way we talk about each other's churches, the way we talk about different church leaders needs to be, incredibly positive, realizing that the Spirit of God is doing something, wants to do something, and just not just one church, but cities and churches within the city. I think of John 17, Jesus' wonderful words when he's praying this priestly prayer. And it's not just again for one church, but it's about all believers coming together to experience oneness. And I think that's what we're starting to see happen in our city right now. And so where am I seeing this? Well, first off, I'm seeing this in churches starting to find new ways to express partnerships or collectives, doing things together, often in collaboration with other people. It's true for churches. It's also true for Christian not-for-profits. So I think one of the things I'm seeing this in collaboration with the Laidlaw and with Venn is we've begun this ministry called Till and Sow. It's these vocational conversations for young professionals particularly. But again, this isn't just one church or a group of churches. This is churches in collaboration with Laidlaw and Venn, but putting something together that kicks off middle of August. And it's a lot more work, but I think the fruit of that will show in months to come. Also with Auckland Church Leaders, as we're coming together, we're just having a lot more focus on unity. And so different leaders talking about why unity is important, why it's so hard, what we can do together that we can't just do by ourselves. And so I think we're just seeing that in various ways right now. So some of the things we're going to be asking you to pray for tonight is first of all, the coordinated development of pastoral clusters around our city over the next 6 months. So we really want to see all these clusters all around the geographical spread of our city to really develop this ministry ecosystem throughout this wider super city that we have. Secondly, we have an overnight gathering of really just a dozen key leaders in our city in the end of August. And I think this is a pretty key 24 hours together. We'll be praying together for our city. This is across denominations, it's across large church, small churches, 4 different ethnicities, even just in that small group. And I think just coming together and trying to grab a heart for what we could do together and trying to inspire that at a bigger level throughout our city. And then thirdly, it's a smaller event, but Japanese within Auckland have pulled together Japanese, or trying to pull together Japanese Christians throughout our nation. And they'll be meeting at Gracecity this weekend coming. So there's already over 150 people registered, flying up from all around the country. A Japanese pastor from Christchurch is speaking at the event. It's all in Japanese, translated into English. But I think, again, just a wonderful illustration of this collaboration of coming together in a really significant way. I think the Spirit of God is really blowing towards unity. A second area that I want to just emphasize too is not just the unity, but this united community witness. And we desperately need this, don't we? Our world has significantly changed over the past 20 years. If I'm just looking for a piece of mail here, but if you just kind of picture an envelope, we used to mail that envelope to somebody's mailbox. And, if we kind of think about that envelope being the gospel, we knew it would kind of get to the recipients at the other end. And even though they might be a bit cautious, they would have opened that up and been more open to the gospel. Today, though, 20 years later, if we mail that same gospel to the recipients, we find that actually they've moved to a whole new location. And I think for many of us as churches, we're still mailing the gospel to the old location, and we're not having any real luck with what's happening. The gospel hasn't changed, but where the recipients are has changed significantly. And so we're all wrestling with the implications of this, and I think trying to understand where culture's moved and reflecting on what that means in our models of ministry that we have as well. And this challenge of taking unchanging truth to a rapidly changing world. And so one of the key texts that I keep in front of us as Auckland Church leaders is Jeremiah 29, verse 7. So Jeremiah is writing to people in exile who are the minority, that they're not in charge anymore. Our society has changed significantly for the people's experiences. It's very similar to what we're experiencing today. And yet this is what Jeremiah says. He says, work for the peace and the prosperity of the city where I sent you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, for its welfare will determine your welfare. And that peace and prosperity comes from this Hebrew word shalom, because there's no lexical range that can capture shalom with just one English word. So you have this financial shalom, that no one needs to live below the poverty line, this social shalom, that everyone has a place to belong, and a spiritual shalom where everyone can hear about God and be in this right relationship with God. And so what we're doing in Auckland Church Leaders is we're trying to work together for the common good, to promote that peace and prosperity, to work hard towards it. And so 3 things that we're doing right now, and I guess we're using a Nehemiah model of ministry to do this. If you remember the story of Nehemiah, Nehemiah hears about the broken walls. He feels it deeply. He prays. He then assesses the need. He develops a vision, and then he steps out of that and coordinates a whole community working side by side to rebuild the walls. And so we're kind of taking that model on as we think about our city of Auckland. And so right now we're trying to identify a tool to audit our city need. Identifying what are our city needs, what churches and what not-for-profits here are doing something about it, in order to really get a good framework to see what needs to be done, and get some measurable tools to see what change will happen over time. So it's going to be one thing to pray for. Another is the development of a coordinated vision for our city. And so I've had the privilege of meeting some via Zoom, some leaders of movements in various cities at the moment, and just been really inspired by what's happening in a range of other cities globally, and thinking about what that might look like here in Auckland. And this is one of the reasons we are gathering in Waiheke, just to start developing that a little bit more and think about how what would be necessary to have a coordinated vision for the super city of Auckland. And then finally, we need to rally people together. And a big part of this, I believe, is empowering our diverse cultural leaders that we have within Auckland. I mean, Auckland is, I think, the fourth largest multicultural city in the world. And I'm reminded in the book of Acts that when the capital of the church, as it were, moved from Jerusalem to Antioch, the minority leaders in Antioch picked up the vision, picked up the gospel, and suddenly the church just exploded geographically. It just went all over the place. And I believe that's what can happen here in Auckland as well, as we develop a vision, empower gospel leaders, and empower diverse leaders to take that much further and around our city. So there's some of the things we want to be praying for tonight. And so I think they're up on the sheet there. The other parts are right here. The wisdom to identify the right tool for an audit for our city, the development of a coordinated vision for our city, and the empowerment of diverse cultural leaders. And so we are blessed by all of you gathered here to be able to pray for our city tonight. It's a beautiful city, but also a very broken and diverse city. And so thank you for praying for us.